So you kill a fascist and you'll be sort of like one of the assassins who tried to kill Mussolini and Hitler. You will be praised. That's the motivation. They want to be a famous political activist. In these killers, whether they do it out of racial motivations or ideology, there's two assumptions they make. Number one, if they do it, either people will try to contextualize it or praise it, as we saw with Robinson on the left, and we saw with the mayor of Charlotte. Immediately she said, don't demonize the homeless, this is not race, dude can't rest. And they know that there'll always be some excuse or even praise. And second, there will not be consequences. When he went into that rail car, he had 14 times he committed a felony and never really paid a serious price, and he thought he could do almost anything and get away with it. And the same thing, if you look at the cheery attitude, I thought he had to be taken out, lift up the computer, there's the note. He was acting in the same manner that he thought Luigi Mangione was going to get off. And until we just say to ourselves, we don't really care what your motivation is, we don't care what you say, we don't care if you have a beautiful mansion or you're homeless, we don't care if you claim that you're on that, we're just going to treat what you did. And there's going to be sure and swift punishment if you have, after your fair trial, and it should you be found guilty. And that's going to be deterrent. And you may think that's biblical or ancient or old-fashioned, but there's a 2,500-year history that it works.
Victor Davis Hanson is warning that a culture which excuses political violence and fails to punish repeat offenders creates a dangerous incentive: fame for killers and the belief that there will be no consequences. He argues we need clear, impartial accountability to deter copycats. And the video will go on to explore how narratives and institutions either amplify or check that cycle. It's a reminder that without consistent justice, society risks normalizing violence as a political tool.
They say there was no political motive here. It was probably a right-wing family. Don't dare do what we did. And of course, the people who have been commemorating his passing never had any desire to do that. They're not rioting, they're not arson, they're not torching courthouses or police precincts. They're not doing any of that. They're not getting free zones in the middle of cities, but they think they'll do that. And the irony about it is this was clear cut. That chat group of 20 or so people, they were from one ideology. The trans lover was one from. Everybody in his family said he had gone hard left. So that was unmistakable. But in the case of George Floyd, there were two things. There was a big debate whether his amphetamines or his prior COVID or his fentanyl use or resisting police had made him more vulnerable to what Officer Chauvin did. And there was a big debate about whether unarmed black men are inordinately shot as suspects, and everybody from Harvard economist Roland Fryer to the Washington Post said, given the encounters with black males between 19 and 40 with the police, and what were the percentage of the encounters versus being shot while unarmed, it was statistically no different than anybody else. And that was the fact. And yet they took that and they fabricated a whole myth that the police are on a rampage killing black males, and therefore we got to get this critical race theory, critical legal theory, all these Soros DA, and they did. They had a revolution for 4 years, and now they're saying to themselves, oh my gosh, that was successful, and now the right could do what we did. So we've got to nip it in the bud and stop all narratives that this was politically motivated and say it's both sides, it's a cycle of violence, and concentrate on ending assault weapon. And for someone who's had 2 or 3 hours of experience, it's not difficult to do what this horrible person did. So all this, what I'm getting at, Megan, this is all misinformation because they're projecting and they're terrified that the right would use their methodology. And the final irony is they're not. They never had any intention of rioting, protesting, driving through an agenda by using the death of Charlie Kirk. There's 500 million guns in the United States, and there's no way you're going to round them all up unless you want a police state. More importantly, when she said this gun culture on the right, there is a gun culture, and it is an illegal gun culture, and it's called inner city handguns. I think after we've seen this horrific last 2 weeks of the murder on the light rail of Irina Vereshchuk, yeah, and you saw Charlie Cook, and there was the Auburn murder, and there was Queen. I think people are they're just tired of all of this demagoguery because they know that this violence is coming from left, that people who are identify as trans are overrepresented, not in all of what they do is they go back to all the shootings of the last 100 years when the trans phenomenon is about 10 years old. If you look at the most recent one, 5, 6 incidents, and you look at what scientists, psychologists, sociologists have said about the incidence of gender dysphoria in the general population, it's about 1 or 2 people per 100,000 prior to this sensationalism and fetish. So they know all that. And so what they're doing is transparent. What he's thinking, it's just fantastic. He's saying that the shooter positioned himself somewhere between 150 and 200 yards away and said to himself, I'm going to shoot only when a trans question comes up, and I can hear it very well. And even if he could hear it on the amplification, he's going to sit there and predicate that. And what would that show if he did do that? That he loved a particular person, or that he was a deranged trans activist in general, as his chat group suggested. I just think that if you're a major Republican politician or you're a political activist, that because of the reaction to Charlie's death, that there are going to be a lot of people who still believe that if they were to do harm to you, kill you or wound you, that people would not mind at all, that they might get out of it, there might not be swift accountability, legal accountability, and they would be praised. And then that creates a climate in which I think we're in a new era. In the United States, we've had political assassinations, but unlike Europe or Mexico or Latin America, we don't go after media people. Some we have in the past, but not high-profile media. And he was a media person, podcaster, writer.
In this video, Victor Davis Hanson makes a powerful case about the dangers of excusing violence and failing to punish repeat offenders. He shows how the search for fame, coupled with lenient treatment, creates a culture where killers believe they can act without consequence. I find his perspective striking because it connects historical patterns with today's realities, reminding us that justice must be swift and impartial if it's to serve as a true deterrent. In my view, Hanson highlights a truth we often avoid. When society tolerates excuses over accountability, it risks inviting chaos and legitimizing political violence.